Black and white are equally important in a photograph. The word no is almost taboo, or at least it has been in my life. Taboo because I believe that people don't like me when I say no. Taboo because I don't hear others saying no too often either. My conclusion has been, since growing up, that no is a kind of a bad word. And so I've avoided using it as best I could. But it leaves me with only a partial vocabulary. In my attempt to have the world like me by not saying no, I actually handicap myself. It's like driving a car with only an accelerator and no brake. No wonder I don't want to go more than 5 miles an hour. No wonder I panic if there's a slope. It takes courage to say no, but only if I want someone's approval. Wanting someone to like me is the nemesis of saying no. So if I want to strengthen my ability to say no, I have to question my desire to be liked. After all, that's what makes it hard, because I think my no is going to be too much for the other person, or they're going to turn on me or dislike me. This works best for me one situation at a time. It's hard to question, I want other people to like me in a general way. It becomes quickly some kind of philosophy. But it becomes very real and concrete when I'm dealing with a concrete situation. Here's an example. I remember when I was young, my mom wanted me to be a doctor, and I wanted to live in an ashram meditating instead. I wanted my mom to approve of me, which made it very difficult to say a clear no to her ideas for me. My solution was to stay more distant from her. And that's often what happens. When I can't say no, it leaves me no choice. I don't want to be dishonest to myself, so I end up going away from people and hiding out and experiencing it. You typically think of cowardice as that desire to just not deal with it. And it's an attempt to be honest with myself, but there's an inability to actually communicate that in an effective way to another person. To some degree, not being able to say no to my mom cost me having her more in my life. I remember when I moved to the ashram, I didn't actually tell her until after a few weeks after I moved. I was trying to stand up for myself, but the best I could do was a cowardly version of it. If I was doing the work on it today, I'd have some options. Start by writing a judge your neighbor worksheet on my mom. It might sound something like this. I'm afraid of mom because she won't approve of me going to the ashram. I want her to approve of my decision. I want her to let me live my own life. I want her to forget about medical school. I want her to stop judging me based on career. She should see that I'm a seeker. She should let me follow my own path. She should stop trying to make a duplicate of herself. I need her to respect me. I need her to let me explore freely. I need her to love me unconditionally. She is materialistic, selfish, closed-minded, controlling. I don't ever want her to disapprove of my decisions again. And I can see just writing this now that it still has some charge for me after all these years. But I'm going to put this in my queue of worksheets to work. These Judge Your Neighbor worksheets are literally a record of the thoughts in my mind and really in my heart, the emotional thoughts that I have regarding this old situation. The point is that it was my desire for approval that stopped my no. I'd be willing to bet that if I had questioned these thoughts back in my 20s, I would have been much closer to having a fearless conversation with her about what I wanted to do. In fact, I bet I could have even listened to her side with an open mind without feeling obligated to please her. That could have been a very different relationship. But luckily with the work, it's never too late. I can still do this now. The other piece of it for me was not wanting to admit confusion. I wasn't always 100% clear about my life in my 20s, let alone even now. I felt a lot of confusion in both my career plans and in my personal life. My mom would have probably been a great person to talk with about it, but I couldn't because I believed that she was expecting some kind of perfection for me, or that she had some ideals of how she wanted me to live. And I assumed, since when I first started getting grades in fourth grade, that she always expected perfect grades for me. And my goal was always to please her by being as close to perfect as I could. And so I assumed that my personal life was the same. It had to be perfect, no confusion allowed. And that left me isolated from her, separate, trying to get there and then go back and present myself to her in some kind of perfect state. And this is what I called my miserable, my terrible 20s. So what makes them terrible is having this kind of thought, unquestioned. I didn't have the work back then. I worked it out as best I could, but now I can go back, clean up pieces of my life that were stressful for me many years ago. So here's another Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, again on my mom. I feel distant with my mom because she expects me to be perfect. I want her to stop expecting perfection from me. I want her to be approachable to talk to. I want her to drop her motives to change me. I want her to be a safe place for me to explore things with. I want her to not judge me for being confused. She should see that her desire to influence me keeps me away. She should tell me that we are all just finding our way in the dark. She should share stories of how she was confused too. She should destigmatize confusion for me. She should be an example of vulnerability for me. I need her to listen without judgment to me. I need her to accept me as I am. I need her to love me. She is judgmental, harsh, motive-driven, unforgiving. I don't ever want her to expect me to be perfect when I'm confused again. So once again, more thoughts between me and an honest conversation with my mom. The only thing stopping me were my beliefs. And now I see that these beliefs can be questioned. I want to do this work even now, after my mother has died, because the same beliefs that stopped me then from being honest and saying no in the face of her potential disapproval continue to stop me today with others. This is how doing the work on one situation, one relationship, can open up possibilities for the whole of life. This is why I love the work. Through inquiry, no becomes equal to yes, just like the accelerator and the brake are equal in driving a car. When I question the stressful thoughts that keep me from saying no begins to be easier. It becomes a good thing, not something to hide in taboo. If you want to question your stressful thoughts about saying no, schedule a private session with me, and I would love to go into that with you. Finally, we'll end with a quote from Byron Katie's book, I Need Your Love, Is That True? Honest communication begins with you communicating with yourself. It means responding to what is true for you, regardless of how someone may react to your answer. First, you have to discover what is true, really true for you. A dishonest yes is a no to yourself.